Hi there. One of the things about quarantine is that being at home together is really either accelerating relationships or it is revealing or exacerbating cracks in existing relationships. Today we have Maggie Jandra with us to talk about the relationships that are accelerating quickly. And one of the things that we believe in at Freed Marcroft and that we work closely on with Maggie is that prenups can really not only help pre-decide what would happen in the event of a divorce, but they also set you up to avoid divorces. I can't tell you how many more prenups we've done than divorces with a prenup at our firm. They're completely disproportionate. And one of the reasons we know that works is when people engage in a prenup, they have the discussions about money that set them up for success in their relationship down the road. But there's another step that's really important, and that's why we're so lucky to have Maggie here, which is when it comes to money, understanding what your personal risk tolerance is versus what your fiance or spouse's risk tolerance is really critical. And again, it sets up the lines of that communication, because these aren't things that can't be reconciled. People with totally different risk tolerances when it comes to money and investing have long, happy, healthy relationships for years to come. It's just figuring out what they are, putting a name on it, and then figuring out how to have that conversation. So Maggie Jandra, thank you for joining us to talk about risk tolerance and how they can help you build a strong relationship.
Thanks for having me. And I love the introduction because you're absolutely correct. You can have different risk tolerance than your partner and still have a very healthy relationship. I think by going through the process of having a prenuptial agreement, you're going to have that conversation. And therefore, you're going to learn that if your risk tolerances do differ, how you're going to manage money so that both of you are satisfied.
I love it. And one of the things that's so great that Maggie has us set up to do, and we're going to do this in a screen share, is there's a complimentary process that Maggie has offered to take you through to figure out what your respective risk tolerances are. And this is such a good time to do it because Maggie, a year ago, you had to have people like put themselves back in the shoes of how they felt in 2008 during the last correction, right? And now we're in a position where we can give them a pretty honest and fresh take on like really what our risk tolerance is.
Absolutely. I think, we just had 11 years of a bull market, which means a market that has an upward trajectory, a market that is growing. And so a year or two ago, if you took a risk tolerance, you might have had a little fear of missing out. And maybe you took on extra risk that you actually didn't realize how that would feel in a downward market because 2008 seemed so far away, right? And so now we've just experienced it. So it's a great time to reassess. How did you feel during this market downturn? How do you feel right now? Because we're not quite out of the woods yet. Right. And I loved what you said prior to this webinar or prior to this video, is that risk tolerance is really what sort of risk are you willing to take on in the short term, right? Right. And you might have to give up some long-term gains to keep that risk down in the short term. But if you understand what you're giving up and what you're gaining, then you're going to feel comfortable with your portfolio no matter what happens in the market.
I love it, Maggie. I think that's great. And one of the points you made when we were chatting before we started recording was also that really risk tolerance helps Maggie craft a plan for your long-term goals, right? So that what you can handle during these market deviations is just sort of what you can handle in the short term in order to get the benefits of the long-term plan. So it helps her craft the long-term plan, knowing what you can handle. So we're going to use me as a guinea pig, right? Yeah. Fake me.
So let me just launch our program and share it. Okay. Great. So All right. So Megan, we have you investing easy round number of $1 million. So you are a millionaire. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so first, when we do this, use this tool, the reason we use this tool, I should say, is because sometimes risk tolerance, what does that mean, right? It means the appetite you have for the for risk, or the appetite you don't have for risk. But a lot of questionnaires are usually, they don't have any numbers behind them. So they're very often, how would you feel if this happened? Are you moderately conservative? Are you aggressive? Those are just words. And what I like about this tool is that it actually puts numbers behind the feelings, right? So I'm just going to restart this questionnaire. So if you use this Riskalyze tool with us, you're going to get an email that's going to launch this Riskalyze tool. You'll put in your name, and you'll put in, what is this money used for? Retirement, let's say, and then you put in your investment amount. Like I said, we're going to do $1 million. It's nice and easy to work with. And then we'll launch it. And the tool then starts asking you questions. How would you feel if you lost money or gained money in the next 6 months? So we'll get to that screen in just a minute.
Okay.
All right, so here's the screen. So Megan, how would you feel, hypothetically, if you had $1 million and you, going all the way to the right, lost in the next 6 months about $200,000, or if you gained $200,000? Does that feel comfortable to you, or do you want to take on less risk and say in the next 6 months I would only be comfortable losing the absolute minimum, which in this case is about $40,000 on a $1 million investment?
And I'm willing to gain 40. I think a little bit more than that.
Somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, somewhere in the middle.
Perfect. So we'll click next, and then the questions build on each other. So you'll see your original choice, and you could go to the right, which is losing 12%, right, which is your original choice, but gaining a little bit more, so wanting a little bit more reward of being invested in the market. Or you can go to the left, which is more conservative, saying, no, I'm good with in the next 6 months, if I just get a 12% return, I'd be more than happy, and I love to see that I'm losing less. So do you want to go to the right? Go to the left? Okay.
Yeah.
You can go with your original choice or go even more conservative.
This reminds me of the eye doctor, Maggie, where you're getting really close, like the last different lenses.
That's right.
I think, I definitely don't want less risk. I feel like I like where I am.
Great. So we'll go there. And since you just said you like where we are, we'll choose your last choice.
Okay.
And that's where we'll be. So based on this, you have a risk score of 41. And then you can either try again, or you say, yes, that feels like me. So
this is what's so nice, right? Because even then you can say, no, I'm just not sure, and run through it again.
Absolutely. So once you complete that on your own time, it gets sent to me. And then we ask you for a copy of your investment portfolio, and we put in the exact holdings into your current portfolio. Right. So again, we're using a model portfolio here, but I'm so happy that you got a more conservative result, because the model portfolio we're using is quite aggressive. And so
theoretically, if I call you and I say, Maggie, I'm working with Friedmarcroft, we're going to do a prenup, but we both want to know our risk tolerances, right?
Yes.
You could also, what you're about to do is compare, for example, say this was all in my 401k.
Absolutely.
You could tell me if I'm a 41, you could tell me if my portfolio is in alignment with that.
Absolutely. And now's a wonderful time to reassess that risk tolerance, because as we mentioned, we just went through a downturn, so you might have a true feeling of how you feel when the market does take a hit. And then you can understand if your investments are in alignment, right? And so this is important from a new couple perspective, because you might be thinking, are we going to put all of our accounts jointly together? Certainly people's retirement accounts are always separate. So you could even say to yourself, well, Megan, you're very conservative based on this answer, but let's say your partner, Kristen, is really aggressive. Well, maybe you guys manage your 401ks differently, but any accounts you have jointly, you manage them at a risk level of somewhere in between. So that's the sort of work we do with people.
I think that's so great, because I just want to really underscore that for folks. Setting this up, right, and having this discussion in the context of this and all of the questions that happen in a prenup means that you've already thought through the hard stuff and discussed the hard stuff and made a plan, right? That's what Maggie and I are always trying to help people with, really, like to understand what their options are so they can make an educated plan. I love this. Part of the questions that we would also ask, of course, on the side of this process are, how would you feel about that 401k, right? If this marriage should end in divorce, and remember, prenups are a really good thing to do to avoid divorce and build strong relationships. But if that we should divorce, is my prenup mine, or is my 401k mine, or are we sharing that? How about our house? All of those things weigh into the planning that Maggie's doing on how your risk tolerance shows up in different types of accounts.
That's right. And exactly like you said, we both know through our divorce work together that not all assets are created equal, right? So something on paper might have the same value. We often talk about a very tangible asset, but an illiquid asset, meaning it doesn't sell quickly like a house, versus a 401k, which depending on what you're invested in, you could sell out of those things fairly quickly, but also they're not accessible until you retire without a penalty. So these are all questions that we go through, as you said, if you were to divorce, how would those assets be split up, or would they be at all, right? What would you retain in a divorce? So very important questions to go through beforehand.
I think this is so great, Maggie. So in order to have Maggie take you through this process, which again, she's offered to do on a complimentary basis, so we're very grateful for that. Let us know and we will get you set up so that you can figure out how to plan a happy, healthy life together, financially and otherwise.
Absolutely. And, one thing I have to say is that I know the way that we're getting married right now is changed a little bit. We've seen a lot of Zoom weddings, right, where we're not going to physically to a location to get married. But don't let that derail don't let this short-term volatility, meaning the pandemic, meaning the market, meaning changes in the way we do business, don't let that derail your long-term plan. So still be sure to do a prenup if that is part of your long-term plan. Megan, I know that you guys have worked through Zoom and through online access to be able to still get prenups written and pushed through, even if you are getting married via Zoom.
Yeah, that's right, Maggie. It's actually, our office, like your office, already had embraced technology. See Exhibit A, you're a cool tool, right? But yeah, we're able to help people remotely. I mean, we've since self-quarantine, we've done full prenups with everyone in the comfort of their own respective homes. Whether we want to be here or not is a different story, but we can get them done. And frankly, people have more time right now to go through this process. There's time to move really efficiently, and you can get this done without any problem, and have the important discussions and accomplish what you need to accomplish in what frankly would be a really aggressive timeline if we weren't all at home.
That's right. So good news.
Maggie Genre, thank you so much.
Thank you.